Hey guys, what you're about to see is a clip from today's episode of The Outside Insider. If you do want to see the rest of the episode, it will be available on all podcasting platforms under PSN Radio. There's links in the description. Make sure you check them out. But this 10-minute segment is just for you guys. What I wanted to do more than anything is kind of go through it all, give my takes on it, because Twitter has been a cesspit this past week, and we have gone from a report coming out to then one of my writers at PSN putting a report out, and that then blowing up, and then Adam Kaplan and a Facebook group. Like, there's so many levels to what has come out this week that I wanted to just sit down and guide you through it, because there is some element of concern, and fans do have a right to be concerned about their general manager. And I don't think that Roseman doing good things and bad things are mutually exclusive. Like, very much it is a bit of both, alright? So for instance, with me and PSN, I might put out a blinding film room on a Tuesday and something you absolutely hate on a Wednesday. And that's part of it. Right now, the YouTube algorithm, for some reason, is kicking up a Nate Gary film room from last year, where he made a really good interception against the Falcons. I called him the most underrated player on the Eagles because at the time I thought he was. That now makes me look bad. Does that somehow make my Travis Fulgham film room any better or worse? I don't think so. It's subjective. It's the same thing with any managing director of a company or whatever, right? No matter what you put out, like, you should be judged on results, okay? So yes, Howie Roseman can maybe go and find absolute steals like Travis Fulgham, like Jordan Mailata, like Cravon LeBlanc, like Boston Scott. Doesn't mean the rest of it shouldn't be criticised. And just because he's being criticised doesn't mean the rest of it shouldn't be praised. Alright, that bit I wanted to make absolutely clear. Because I feel like Twitter especially, you can get forced into one box. It's either you're on that side of Howie Roseman should be burnt at the stake, or you're on that side where he's the best thing since sliced bread. There is no in between. And I don't think that's the right way to do things, lads. Alright, smart people. You're all smart people. You can all form your own opinions, and I think it's only fair that we do that as a collective, right? So let's go through this together. The first tweet that came out was from 97.5 The Fanatic, okay? Now, first and foremost, The Fanatic, I don't understand why they don't partner with the Phillies Fanatic and call it The Fanatic and have him host everything, because it'd be a damn sight better than half of the shit that goes out on there. Sorry. I am sorry. Alright, look, I shouldn't have... We're moving on. I know that Howie is a voice when it comes to actives on game day. I don't know how much of a voice, but he's definitely a factor when it comes to that decision. That was from Jeff McClain, okay? So that's in relation to, obviously, the inactives on game day. We're talking players like Greg Ward. We're talking why it took so long for Travis Fulgham to go up. How much stock you put in that, I don't know. But that was very much the catalyst that set it off. And when you look back at some of the stuff that's come out over the past year or so, I don't think it's that hard to believe, right? I mean, so I did a video not too long ago saying that there is a very clear disconnect between the front office and the coaching staff. And the front office go after a very certain type of player. They want to go a certain type of way. And the offense or the defense want to play a very different type of way. And neither side want to buckle, it feels like. And this could be wrong. It's just speculation. What do I know? I'm in England, right? But you look at the fact they bring in so much speed to that offense at wide receiver, and then they run most of their personnel out of 12, right? It's just non-stop tight ends all across the field, right? Like, you get that kind of sense that something isn't right. Like, the Eagles go out and draft Sidney Jones and Rasul Douglas, who are now thriving. Like, Jones had 4 passes defense and a pick last week with Jacksonville because he fits the scheme better. It's like, instead of just saying, hey, well, we can take that player and mold him into this bit of the offense, if we can then get a player that can do this bit over here, they're just going, no, it's all or nothing on either side. So I get why then Howie Roseman may be a little bit more poignant in saying, no, you're playing him. You're playing that guy right there. He's active on game day and you're going to start him. I would understand, like, from Howie's perspective, not whether it's right or wrong, but if there is a disconnect and though both sides are trying to, like, force and clash loggerhead, that why Howie's going to use that power to try and have that final say, to try and push those players he wants in the team over the barrier. It would also make sense, on that note, why Alshon Jeffrey, which in itself is a confusing situation, and I was going to touch on this later, but why he wasn't placed on IR. Now, I know there was a theory earlier today that obviously he couldn't be placed on IR straight away because he'd already started the off-season with it, so he had to go on PUP by a certain date, and they didn't. They all got messy. Basically, it was handled terribly. The Eagles should have done better, and Alshon Jeffrey was placed on PUP under the assumption that he's going to cost a roster spot, but it's fine because he'll be ready in 6 weeks. That hasn't happened. He's not ready in 6 weeks. We're 6 weeks in. He's not here. Okay? So that's roster mismanagement. And that roster spot could have cost him Rasul Douglas, could have cost him Sidney Jones, could have cost him Casey Tuill, could have cost him Noah Togiai. You can go on and on and on. It almost cost him Cravon LeBlanc. It almost cost him Cravon LeBlanc. So with that level of power, with Howie going, all right, well, maybe because we're financially tied to Alshon Jeffrey, because we guaranteed his money. Maybe that's why we're pushing it. Maybe that's why we're going in, you know? Because we owe him $21 or $30 million next year in 2021. This is why we have to play him now. Because if we can't trade him by the deadline, help. There's dead cap, right? I could see that. Because the only way you're ever going to ship Alshon Jeffrey is if there's a slight resume. The only way he's going to get a resume and if he's on the field, and if he's not on the team, he's not on the field. So you take a risk. I get it. I could see that being a thing. Anyway, Twitter blew up with this, and then one of my writers, Chris Infante, you will know him as co-host of Flipping the Bird, got some intel from a source. Now, obviously I would never throw my writer under the bus because he's my writer, but I would hold them accountable. Okay? And obviously I'm in communication with them every day about everything. So if I get information to tell them, if they get it, they tell me. Like, I'm not that kind of guy. I don't care who breaks stuff. I mean, like, metaphorically, not literally. Don't go and break objects, guys, if you're listening, because it costs money to replace. But seriously, like, I don't care who breaks news, as long as the team feasts, as long as we get bigger and more credible as a brand. Like, that's all that matters to us, is gaining your trust, your respect, and more importantly, like, your heart and passion, and having that conversation saying, look, we've got some information, we want to share it with you, right? That bit's important. I want to get to that later. So I knew what Chris was going to put out before Chris put it out. I know the source it came from because I too have spoken to that source. So that's why I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, this is bollocks, because I get it. Now, what I will say is I feel like no matter where you get information from, whether it's me, Chris, Adam Kaplan, whoever, Jeff McClain, that information only ever gets out because someone wants it out. And if it's a scout, if it is a agent, if it's a player, there's going to be an incentive there. Like, the media is very much almost like a pawn in that sort of thing. And the thing I always go back to is a few years back when it was, I think it was 2015, Vinny Curry came off a big year, was a pending free agent, and I got intel he was working out and receiving a lot of interest from Baltimore, who wanted to poach him. Okay, and it wasn't considered tampering, but it was kind of seen as a given that the second that window opens, the first team through the gate is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. They wanted Vinny Curry, who wanted to stay in Philadelphia, and that bit was apparently clear. So when I report Vinny wants to stay in Philly, but the Ravens are coming after him, essentially, or something along those lines, it was a few years ago, within a couple of days, there is a new contract extension in place for Vinny Curry. Curry's now an overpaid defensive end. Because word gets out that the Ravens are interested. And that may have been Vinny Curry's side way of going, hey, hurry things up. He wants to stay, but there's other teams looking and it's heating up. Like, that's what I'm saying, right? So information only ever gets out because someone wants it out. Now, why would it come out on Howie Roseman? Could it be people are disgruntled about him and they're pissed off and they've had enough? Absolutely. Could it be someone that is talking from a player perspective that's been done dirty? Could it be someone that is injured and it's from the medical staff? Could it be someone that is no longer with the team? Could it be a former player that's looking in and has colleagues in the organisation? Like, whatever it may be, alright, there is a reason that it comes out. But I know for a fact that this source is very close with the organisation. And while some of the stuff that hasn't come out from myself or Chris is I wouldn't put it out there and stand behind that as absolute, biblical proof, I think that there is a lot of weight. And there is that saying of where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So, Chris's tweet reads, sources confirm this, re Jeff McClain's report. So about the game day decisions, right? How he tells coaches he will give the heads up on Wednesday as to give enough practice time, but doesn't Coach is in the dark until the weekend when Howie then says who will play. He then decides who dresses. So that took off, and Chris, bless him, had like 700 likes, retweets everywhere. People then do the thing, because PSN isn't an established media brand, because we're not checkmarked, because we don't have a little blue tick, alright, that we're lying and we're doing it for clout, okay? Never. It's not our style. It's not what I do. It's not us. It's not us, and that's not why we have people like Chris on our team. Like, Chris is there as a writer, and he's there to give his opinion. And he's just put out a fantastic article typing up everything about this. If you want to know the ins and outs of what that source said to Chris, I'll leave the article in the description, because it is a fascinating read. And it goes on to the relationship between Doug and Jim being very, very pally, and how they're like that and like best buds, despite everyone assuming that they not hate each other, but there's almost a little bit of unwaveringness there. There's been reports today of Jim Schwartz coming out with personnel control. That gets addressed here, especially with linebackers and this scheme specifically. So one of the big things that Chris says is the linebackers Schwartz has had, like Stephen Tulloch between 2011 and 2013, Larry Foote and Julian Peterson before that. All of those guys never had under 83 tackles in a season. Okay, DeAndre Levy's another, Justin Durant's another. They never had under like 80 tackles. And now with the Eagles, there are no linebackers. The defense is struggling. So it's like, there's basically different levels to this Howie Roseman thing. Now, that tweet, when it took off, again, PSN's being thrown under the mud. Everyone's like, oh, they're making it up, and they never get any views, which we do, but I'm not going to, I'm not that guy. What I really, I guess, wanted to touch on with that tweet about Howie Roseman is that we don't know how much involvement he has. Should we really care how much involvement he has if it works? It's one of those things where we'll care if it works, and if it doesn't work, like, we're like, oh, well, fire him right now. If it does work, who is going to kick off? If Howie Roseman is lobbying for Boston Scott and he breaks out against the New York Giants like he did last year, are you really going to kick off? If Howie Roseman lobbies for Nate Gary, you're going to kick off. Okay, it's one of those things. So that's very subjective. Now, there are other things where it basically says that Howie Roseman does have a lot of pull, especially over draft choices, where something came out today, right? The Eagles were going to get Jeremy Chin, the safety. They ended up getting Jalen Hurts because of a late surge from Howie Roseman, who pulled the trigger. That, I think, carries weight. I think that carries weight. There's another thing there, a quote that came out from that source saying, personnel guys around the league mentioned how you need to know when to cut your losses and know when you drafted a guy that doesn't fit. Arcega-Whiteside can't separate, he can't run, but he's still there. That is, again, it's a poignant quote, right? And you look at what you're seeing from Travis Fulgham, and that almost goes back to Howie. Fulgham is literally 89% the same player as Arcega-Whiteside. If you go on what draftable, their athletic profiles are nearly identical, right? It's like they've realised that, and they've found a really, really rare opportunity to grab Fulgham, who is the same player on a budget, brought him in and it's worked. J-Jaw didn't, that guy did, and it's like, well, now you're basically where you were again, just you have to get rid of J-Jaw a bit. The next thing that come out, though, right, is that because with all of this, it is hearsay, right? Regardless of whether it's true or not, it's hearsay. Like, it's coming from a source. We don't know how much is exaggerated, how much isn't. And that's fair. That's understandable. But the next bit, after Eagles Twitter have blown up into disarray, some people clamouring for Howie to be fired, that it's toxic and that no GM should do that and blah, blah, blah. And other people almost favouring the coaches and then other people not. And it just got very vicious. The best thing ever happened today, right, was that there was a massive thread about Adam Kaplan, who had reportedly said a bunch of stuff, just conveniently off the bat, nothing had ever happened. And he just randomly decided to say a bunch of stuff per some Twitter account, okay? About Jim Schwartz and Howie Roseman, how he has all the pull, and how it's all a little bit crazy. And I think, what is it he said? That Kaplan apparently said that basically they shouldn't agree with Jim Schwartz and he would understand if they didn't moving forward. To do with player selection again and how Jim Schwartz views talent, which, as we know, that's been a thing before. Like, they're very contradicting. So when looking for where this report came from, it wasn't Adam Kaplan's Inside the Bird podcast, okay? It was an Inside the Bird Facebook group that he runs that is private, okay? So we have now hit a point, okay, in our lives where an NFL insider has piping hot tea on arguably the most intense, spicy, fascinating, backwards, toxic situation imaginable. And instead of putting it out, you know, like it's his job, he's just going to post it in a Facebook group to 1,000 people where no one can share it under the rules of the group, that you're not allowed to put it out. So someone, right, that is the most bollocks idea I've ever heard, okay? I don't know why you would do that and think you're going to get away with it. Like, you can't just go, oh, I'll tell you what, you like Jim Schwartz? I wouldn't agree with him. Yeah, he's made all these decisions. He's a goner, mate. You can't put that out, something that hot, and expect someone on the internet, one person out of 1,000, to not go and tweet it word for word. You are a respected journalist. You are a reporter, someone that has worked for the highest of names, got the highest of accolades, the highest of credibility, somehow know everything and anything about the Eagles. You can't just stuff it behind a Facebook group and expect no one to go, oh my God, that's Adam Kaplan. He knows everything. This is insane. I'm going to tweet it. Idiot, right? First and foremost, absolutely stupid. The second thing is that it is so pretentious to put that behind a wall where it is essentially a group of people who only like your stuff. It is like me doing the same in the PSN group chat on Flick, which you can download. Flick Sports, PSN Eagles Nation, alright? From the App Store, go get it. But it's like me going, oh, I tell you what, lads, you know Howie Roseman? Oh, he was going to draft that guy in the second round. Didn't. Did he? No, he drafted Jay, and only putting it in there. And expecting, like, oh, really? And everyone's sucking up to it. It's such an ego thing, in my opinion. I might be wrong. I don't care if he is it. It's such an egotistical maneuver. As a beat writer, or a reporter, or an insider, or whatever you want to brand yourself, to get information that is that poignant at the time, like, it's so time relevant, and so, like, that might be the hottest thing about it, right? What Chris said, what McLean said, that's now the grand thing. What Kaplan said today was absolutely top level, alright? Next level, unbelievable, sorted, beyond it. And you're going to hide that in a Facebook group. For what? Like, you're using a topic that everyone is discussing to do nothing other than boost your own ego and share it with 1,000 people. And to show it, right, the guy that tweeted it, is obviously that's blown up and his account's gone mental. And one of the guys from the Facebook group has replied to the tweet like, oh, it says on the group we can't share this and now he won't share information again. Well, no shit. Obviously. Like, what do you need? And it's the fact that they're annoyed about it. Like that they were getting some secret OnlyFans service for bollocks takes that probably aren't real, but they're just being validated because they listen to a podcast. Like, that's not how news works. News should be transparent. And if you find something and it's newsworthy, you report it. I get loads of stuff, okay, that I find out through the pipeline or through talking to people or whatever, that I can't say or that I won't say because it's not the right time, it's not the right place, like, it might reflect badly on a person when I don't intend it to, and I don't want to outwardly expose people for giving information, right? You can't just stuff it behind Facebook. I know this is a very different rant, but it just takes the piss. It takes the piss. And I'm sorry if you're a fan of Inside the Birds, because Jeff does a great job, and I know Andrew works with them, and I have the greatest of respect for Andrew. Like, I love his work. He's the most underrated analyst out there. But for Adam to portray himself like that, and to only put information out for his own gain, and to make it so cryptic unless it's behind his magical closed door, like, get a grip, son. Grow up. Like, you're fucking, what, 50 years old? Like, get a grip, mate. You're an insider. Act like one. And that's what I'm going to say on that. But back onto the actual topic, it's just that at the end of the day, we don't really know what Howie Roseman is thinking or doing, or how involved with the team he is or isn't. And the only way it's ever going to come out are through dribs and drabs. And it's the same way McLean only ever seems to conveniently have information when the Eagles are losing, because no one looks for it when the Eagles are winning, because why would they? Like, no one's going to care. So the worse it gets, the worse the stories are going to get. And I want to preface that. The worse this situation gets, if it gets worse, the worse it will get, like story-wise. We're going to find out more and more quotes about how he said this, Jim said that, I wanted that guy, Jim said that guy, Doug did this, Jim wouldn't put a finger in me bum. Like, you're going to get it worse if the Eagles continue to lose. If the Eagles win, and they somehow win on Sunday, or they win and go beyond, you won't hear it. You will not hear another word about it. That is the way that this goes, unfortunately. So, while, yeah, a lot of the stuff I've heard about Howie Roseman is a bit concerning, I also think it's fitting that, does that not match his entire personality? This is someone with the grandest attention to detail, right? Someone that looks at every contract, every nook and cranny, every potential squeeze of cap room he can get, alright? Every single player that can sweep in under the cap on a one-year deal on a prove-it contract while young players develop, he'll get in. Every single practice squad being evaluated and poached and pulled. That's how he does, that attention to detail. Like, you don't find many GMs as active as Howie. Like, there are a lot of passive GMs in the league who, when you get to draft day, go mental and start trading all their picks, and then free agency, they go, oh, star player, and that's it. Not Howie. It's a lot more subtle and a lot of it, as opposed to a burst of everything and then nothing for a bit. So, is it shocking that he wants that level of control when the team's struggling? And he wants his players to play when they're not playing. If you've got a second round pick in Sidney Jones and a third round pick in Rasul Douglas, I want to know why they're not playing. Like, in the same way, if I bring on a writer and they don't contribute for a month, I want to know why. Like, alright, what's going on here? Like, I can still put the content out, that's not a problem. But they've been brought in for a reason. Is it not a scheme fit? Eh? Is it a character thing? Are they injured? Like, what's the deal? What is it? And I get that. It's not far-fetched. I don't think it's that bad in context. But context is key. And that's what's being lost with a lot of this. And I feel like it can get miscontextualized, blown out of proportion, or just one quote being made the entire thing when it's actually part of a much bigger either problem or discussion. So, for instance, you know, the draft, the game day personnel. Like, should the Eagles be allowing Howie that much control over roster personnel on game day if it's the case? Well, alright, well, let's look at, has it failed them in the past? Let's look at, okay, there's a second round pick on Jalen Hurts. He's now active every game day. What's he giving the team? That would be a good way to view it. But you can also look at it in a way of, okay, well, there's investment in these players and they're not playing. Nate Gary's playing. Like, there must be a reason that Davion Taylor's active or in the team every week. There must be a reason that you go down the defensive line, and someone like Hassan Ridgeway stuck around, was traded for a 7th round pick, but they had the investment, you know? It's a really weird conversation to have, because we don't know, and everyone's sort of like, well, do the Eagles have a problem with Howie based on what? Based on the fact that there is something out of context that sounds like I won't agree with it. That's the thing we all have to get our head around, okay? But people using that to either shut down other people or hide opinions and takes and information behind a Facebook group can get in the bin, as far as I'm concerned. I think that is an absolute waste of time. That's all I want to say on it, and I hope that's kind of giving you guys a bit of a broader picture as to what's happened this week, because it is a mess. I don't know what's gone on with it. But the next bit of the podcast will be answering your questions. Then we've got an Eagles v Ravens preview where I give my insight onto the game, who I think is going to win. So if you want to hear that, make sure PSN Radio, you are subscribing. If not, I'll see you next week. I know it's been a bit of a long-winded episode, but I'll see you soon.